Defne, it is very nice to have you as our guest at Zabel International Women Writers Forum.
Hello, everyone. Hello, and I'm very, very honored to be part of this Zabel International Women's Forum.
It's a pleasure for me to say that we already have your book available in Armenian translation, and the Armenian readers will be able to read it in Armenian and will also hear you speaking about the book and about you as a writer to us.
I'm very, very happy about it too.
Yeah. So I wanted to start our conversation with, what I read on your website about how you started writing, about your mother giving you a diary. And I also see within your published books, 2 kind of diaries as well, like nonfiction.
Yes, that's correct.
So can you tell us more how a diary helps to become a writer or if it even does?
Yeah, I would love to talk about that. It's one of my favorite subjects. I started writing, just like you read in my website, when my mother gave me my first diary. I think I was 7 years old, the first grade, and she said, now you know how to read and write. This is your diary. You're going to write every day, and you're going to take a record of the things that you do. Today, I did this and that. And I was a good child. So whatever my mom said to me, I did after, until I was a teenager. And so I started writing, and I really enjoyed writing it. And I was also a child who's reading a lot. I was an only child living in an apartment building. Both of my parents were working, so I had a lot of alone time. And so I was reading, and the more I read, the more I wanted to write and express myself. And after a while, writing became my only way of thinking. So if somebody presented me a problem, I have to say, okay, I'm going to go to my room and I write and try to come up with the solution, and then I'll get back to you with that solution. So it became my way of thinking or gathering my thoughts. And then over time, it became a real habit. Like wherever I go, I went with my notebooks, my pens, my pencils, and I traveled a lot, and I took a lot of, I wrote a lot of diaries, and that was early 2000s. The owner of a yoga studio, I'm a yoga teacher, so owner of a yoga studio told me that, hey, you're traveling a lot and you're meeting with a lot of interesting people and you're traveling for yoga or for your own pleasure. Can you write us a blog? And because I was so used to writing diaries, I simply transferred my diaries into blogs, and I started writing whatever I would write on my diary to the blogs, because I thought I didn't even know what blog is. None of us did, so I didn't. So I thought, a small group of people whom I already know will read my diaries. Cool, I have no problems with that. I'm a letter writer anyway. I used to write a lot of letters, so it will be like letters from my trips. And the blog became a big hit in Turkey. Everybody loved it because a young Turkish woman taking off on her own, traveling the world, doing whatever comes her way, making her money this way or that way. That was an alternative, something a young women were kind of thirsty to learn and be motivated. So that's how it started.
It went on before you were published as a writer,
before,
right?
Then a publishing company approached me and said, would you like to make a book out of your blogs? Because we really like them and they're very popular. So we would like to make a book out of them, but you need to, they are a little bit too informal, too bloggish. Can you take them to a step up and make it more literary? So I worked about six months turning them into a more like editing. I actually did some editing work, and then it became a big hit. Still, like I changed publication houses since then, but wherever I go, that book comes with me. And then I published the second one of them many years later, the continuation of those nonfiction diaries about life, travel, loss, marriage, because I got married meanwhile, what it means for a free spirit to get married and all that. Yeah.
I see. It's very inspirational because there are many, many bloggers right now, and
Yes.
they never think about becoming a writer. And as far as I think, is the books remain while blogs can,
Absolutely.
yeah,
Yeah. I think all
go away
blogs.
one day.
No, that's the other thing. Like, how much patience do we have to read a blog? It's like anything we read on our phones or on the internet. It's so, at least for me and my generation, it's like so transitory. It goes away, whereas the book remains. Like whenever I am like a little down, I don't want to look at my computer, there is something that I can immediately look, read, and then put aside. Look, like the old saying, books are your friends. They're really like your friends, whereas this stuff on the internet, blogs and everything, they're like people you meet at a train station. You meet them, you get to know them, but then they're
Yes, they go
destined to
away.
leave and pass.
I think this is very important information, especially for the young people who write blogs and who are appreciated, who have many followers. They really need to think about becoming writers or getting published, maybe not becoming writers, but getting published. Yes, that's very interesting. But
Absolutely.
meanwhile, you're telling this story, but somewhere in the middle of this, you have studied sociology. Right.
I did at the beginning, before everything. This was before the. Well, my childhood dream, first I wanted to be an actress. And then after that, I realized this is not going to happen. So because somebody told me, the way you speak is not good for theater. So you have to either get lessons of like to speak better or find another dream for you. And, what a terrible thing to tell to a young woman, actually terrible. I wish somebody told me like, don't listen to her. But I did listen to that woman because she was somebody I respected. And I kind of veered off from my dreams of becoming an actress and decided to become a journalist. Because I wanted to write. I knew that from the very beginning, like writing it was in my heart. And I thought, oh, wow, journalism, cool. I can just travel and be a reporter from the war zones and everything. I wanted to do investigative journalism. And there was another dream of mine to study in the Bosphorus University, which is one of the best state universities of my country, of Turkey. But Bosphorus University didn't have journalism department. So I had to make a decision like, okay, I want Boğaziçi, Bosphorus University, which is a beautiful place, but they don't have journalism. What can I do? Oh, I can study sociology, which is closest to my dream of investigative journalism. So that's how I entered the Department of Sociology, and I really loved it. It opened my horizon. I started to understand how society is like a human being. It has dynamics, it has moods. You can deconstruct and understand it, and you don't have to believe in it. It's all a construct. History is a construct. Everything is a construct. That's how I learned in sociology. And it really opened my horizons. And I did my graduate studies there also in Boğaziçi. And I did some internship at a Cumhuriyet newspaper in Istanbul, where I actually realized I don't want to be a journalist. No, no, I want to be a novelist. I mean, it came to me like I worked there one summer and it was enough for me. This is like too much of this is not what I want to write. Like I want to write literature.
And was it the moment that you decided to set up to your long journey and investigation of Far Eastern philosophy and, mystical studies? How does these two work together, like sociology and then mystical studies? Tell us more about that. It's like, I believe it's a wonderful journey. And
it was a wonderful journey. It didn't start as like, oh no, I didn't have any intentions. I was just a 25-year-old who finished everything that could be studied. It was either you have to find a job now and start working, or what? I could have gone to PhD in the United States, and I have been accepted in the University of California, Los Angeles, UCLA's social anthropology department with an amazing scholarship and teaching assistantship and everything. I was ready to go. and everybody was so happy about my success. And I went into a deep depression. Like, is this really what I want? Social anthropology PhD, they sent you a list. You have to make sure that you have 8 years for this study. I said 8 years. Back then, 8 years was a long time for me. 8 years in the UCLA, I don't know if I want to do that. So I rejected the offer. And then my parents said, "What now, girl? Okay, you rejected the offer of your life. What are you going to do now?" And I said, "I don't know. And I'm so tired of this question. I'm just going to go. I'm going to leave. I'm going to travel the world, whatever." And my father said, "Go, but don't expect any support from me. Like, this is too much." So I had to look for a job, and internet was very new. I looked for a job everywhere in the world. Like, there was a website called idealist.org. Idealist or idealist. You can read it any way you like. And I speak English. I'm a sociology graduate. I am good with mathematics. So everything. And then some volunteer job offers come from everywhere in the world. I'm sure now it's much better. Back then it was just very simple. So I got a job offer from Thailand, and I said, "Okay, this is my destiny. Goodbye." So I left. And that was the beginning. I didn't mean to study yoga or any of the Eastern philosophies, but there I met some very good yoga teachers, and they changed my mind and my life. And I fell in love with Hatha yoga. And I said, whatever this thing is, this is why I did everything up to this point, because it gave me courage. It helped me to face myself, my fears, my blockages and everything in the mind, in the body, in the breath, in the spirit. And that gave me the courage to write. So whatever I was hiding in diaries, I was like, okay, now I can write to the whole world.
And there is also a book involved in this journey, which also inspired you towards writing. You mentioned again in one of your interviews about the Middlesex by
yes.
right?
Yes.
And it's how it's a very international book. I mean, it's a book about Smyrna, which has been a very international city. And it's like very obvious in your writing. I personally only read one of your books, The Breakfast Table, which is also available in Armenian. And I see how important for you is this international atmosphere that mixes of culture, just the way, sociology and Eastern philosophy can work together. You said sociology helped you to understand in, the construction of person. But as far as I understand, the Eastern philosophy deconstructs most of the things.
That's true. They go hand in hand. It's
the same like, nations and then international atmosphere, which deconstructs all the limits within, people and cultures. So how did you choose? Why is it so close to you? And you write about it in most of your books, right?
Yeah. I mean, the moment I started yoga, I realized I am carrying this deep melancholy. In Greek, they call it melancholia, in my soul. It's and everything kind of I was able to put in place, like I'm living with a loss. And then I was more interested in psychology and started doing a little research about my own family, and like realized that some came from the Balkans, some came from Harput, which is it used to be an Armenian town in the southeastern Turkey, and there's no records of the people who came from Harput, like what happened to them, how they ended up in Istanbul, no records. So I have a suspicion that they're related to Armenians, or they were actually Armenians, and they had to change identity and escape to Istanbul during some of the Harput massacres. This is like in the 19th century, before the 1915. So I just realized I'm living with this loss, this absence, this big secret in my soul, and wherever I go, I take that with me. And then the more I read books like Middlesex, which talks about a huge taboo subject of Turkish official history. What is it? What really happened to the Christian populations of Ottoman Empire, how they are massacred and erased from the geography of today's Turkey. And when I read it, I was like, that's it. This matches my own loss, like something that is never spoken in my own land, that is something silenced intentionally, is actually aching in my own soul. So I started from the Middlesex. It's about the Greeks being kicked out of Smyrna or massacred from, from the land of Anatolia and from the Asia Minor. And I wanted to write more. Said, okay, this land used to be such a cosmopolitan, such a clash of cultures and civilizations, a lot of languages spoken. And by the time I was born, it was in one nation, one language, one religion. How did we end up here? Mm-hmm. So I started from my own loss, but I actually wanted to speak the entire geography's loss of its color, its voice, its, multidimensional cosmopolitanism. And I think every person, every soul living on the geography of whatever Turkey today carries this loss, carries this pain in their psyche, whether knowing it or not knowing it, but it's there. So I wanted to touch that.
You touch it in the novel At the Breakfast Table, which reminded me of several interesting stories that happened sometime around 2050s, when it was, the 100th anniversary of, not anniversary, but the commemoration of Armenian genocide. And we heard many stories about very old people who before, like in Turkey, who before dying opened up their secret, which was that they were not Turkish. Yes. They were like Armenians who have changed, or they were Greeks who have changed their, kind of nationality and religion to stay and live in their land, kind of. It's like very, very interesting. These are real stories, and you touch upon this topic in your book. Yes. And and also I want to say this, to mention this, that I have an impression that you do believe, which I believe too, that it's so much easier to express these kind of things through art rather than politics, facts, and newspapers.
Yeah, so I think so. I mean, it's a more feminine space, not necessarily a space where women are prominent. They're not. I wish they were. But arts, literature, it's energy-wise, it's a more feminine space than politics. So when you speak in the land of the literature or art or fine arts, then you can actually approach it with more care and with more compassion to everyone, without pointing fingers, without creating shame and guilt. But this is how it is. This is how it happened. It is what it is. This is what history has done to people, without, becoming aggressive about it. And I really like that space. I'm not being, I'm never finding, like, when there is someone to accuse, I go directly accuse. I don't go around and, but at the same time, they were doing this and they were doing this. I'm not apologizing for anyone. But when you put it in a story, it's already much more humane. When you give whatever has happened in a story, then it's giving a perspective. It's also drawing parallel lines to today. Whatever is happening today is no different from history. History is happening today. So now look around your story, whatever you are mourning for, I wonder if you're doing it to somebody in this moment by ignoring them, by simply choosing not to see the pain.
Yeah. And you not only choose the women voice in your books, in your novels, At the Breakfast Table or the Scheherazade, right? You choose different voices. And this is another interesting, way of writing a story, not presenting, one view, but different perspectives of the same story and how different it might be. Now, I want to talk to you about, this women and women literature for women written by women. This is a very complicated issue. We always talk and we don't come to a a point where we can say, is there a women's literature? Are women writers writing only for women, and how different their stories are from men's stories?
Well, I don't believe there's a women's literature. I think, like I said before, all literature, fine arts, everything is a feminine sphere anyway. Even if you're a male writer or a female writer, that means you're not direct, you're not linear, you're not political, you're not choosing the aggression, you're choosing a circular way of expressing yourself. Okay, this is what art is. You are always looking for metaphors to express one. It's more mystical. Whenever something is more mystical, it's necessarily a more feminine space. Any male occupying that that space is also using some feminine qualities. So literature, there cannot be something called women's literature. Literature by itself is giving birth to a world. So literature by itself is a woman. So you can be a man choosing to be in that womb. It's totally okay. But I don't think women are, I know when I wrote the Shehrazad and I was looking for a publisher, and a lot of people loved the book. They took it to the publishers and it received a lot of rejections. And then one person said to me, somebody I really respect, if you were a man and if you were writing this book as a man, I am sure they were going to accept you. But nowadays, a female writer, they're not, she said that to me, and that was very sad, but that was very true. It's still, especially as a first-time writer, like you have your book, it's beautiful, everybody said this is very good literature, go for it, they will accept it, and then the publication houses, they say, no, we're full, this is not really in lines with our publishing policy, blah 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 blah. You have to push more.
But it found its way, right? And
yeah, you have to push more
locally, but also internationally. It's translated into many languages, right?
Right now, it's many languages. In 2015, when I was crying with the book in my hand, like, how come they don't want this book? Because I trust. The most important thing is you trust your literature. If you really know you did your best. If you have a few good readers, they read and they say, yes, this is a good piece of literature, then the rest is just, you have to fight more. Yeah. That's all. This is women's world, unfortunately. More and more we're getting stronger. So this is really good. But still, there has to be more fight. And we are fighters. We fight better than men because it's from the very early onwards. That's what you learn, to fight.
And I should say here that if there were more women presidents and prime ministers, the world would be a very different place.
Absolutely,
right now.
Absolutely. Like none of the things would happen if the whole system was based on female leadership. Other things might happen. I'm not saying it's going to be a better.
Yes,
other things might happen, but it wouldn't happen the way it is today.
Of course, the balance is very important for me, but we don't feel it's a balance right now, right?
No, definitely no.
Okay, and one more question, which is very interesting to me, is that you are among writers who write both fiction and, as you said in the beginning of the interview, nonfiction. So you write about your life as well.
Yes.
When readers read fiction, anyway, they know it's a fiction, but they try to find connections between the characters and the writer. They think that some of the things are, autobiographical, right? But then you come with your very personal nonfiction book telling about you and your marriage. How does it feel to you, like, to open up to the readers, like your real life?
I have no problem opening up, and this is a gift of yoga to me. Like I said, this encouragement, this courage to be as I am. This is me. With I'm just like another human being, like everybody else. It really helped me to understand others. Like if I don't like someone, I really try to understand what part do I not like in this person, and then it also helped me to open up. As a reader, I really like to read autobiographies and personal things of my favorite authors, and then go back to their books and find those pieces. And I remembered, okay, in the interview she talked about this, now in this book I'm finding the same things. I really like these kind of things. So if my readers are finding the similar things, reading my personal things. But there's the other thing too. Whenever you write about yourself, it's never about yourself. There's no way. It's against the nature of things. You still create a representation of yourself. It's like, who am I? I don't know. But when I write, there's this representation of me, which I try to, as close as possible, whatever I am at that moment, but still I create a persona. And when I go back and look at the things I wrote 10 years ago, it's definitely another human being. I don't feel like this person is talking about me. That's another Defne over there. And right now I'm another Defne. So it's still, it's a good question. Like, who is really you?
Yeah, because it's also your vision of yourself. And somebody's vision might be very different. Yes.
Very.
About opening up, it's also very important where you live, which is the society you live in. And I want to ask you this question: how did your family accepted the fact that you have become a writer, especially your father, who said, "I'm not taking care of you if you're going away"? So what was their reaction to what you became and what you are now?
Well, in societies like ours, family becomes a big obstacle. Not even the most encouraging families. My family was very encouraging of me to become a writer, because the alternative is becoming a yoga teacher. So if they have to choose, they really choose the writer part, because like now yoga is, everybody knows. But 10 years ago, when I said I'm becoming a yoga teacher, they were like, oh my God, what did you do? Is it a religion or what? After UCLA, you become a yoga teacher. Now, when I presented as an author, they really picked it. But this is a very, very encouraging family I'm talking about. Still, inside me, there is this blockage of, what will my father think when he reads these pieces about himself? Because I actually did write about my father, when they were divorced, how much I suffered as a child. And even as a child, I didn't say this to my father, that I suffered because you left us. So it was a real, but I said, okay, I'll do it. I have to do it, because if I want to be a courageous person to step forward, I will step over my family and deal with that. And then he came back to me and he said, okay, I read your book, and let me tell you what happened to me. So it was for us a bonding moment. But it's always there. What will my mother think? What will my father think? It's always there. We have to grow, looking at, like, there's no way getting over it, but we can grow by, okay, I have this obstacle and I'm going to swim around it now.
So you can say that writing has been healing also.
Writing has been healing. Yeah, it has been healing, has been bonding. And, I really care about that. If writing is making us separate from one another, something's not working in that writing. If writing is bringing us closer, opening our hearts, connecting us at a deeper level, then it's doing its job.
Yeah, it's very nice. It sounds very nice. And I hope that's how it works for everybody. My last question would be about the biggest moment in your life, maybe in your career or in your personal life, whatever, like one moment you would remember and you would mention as the best moment of your life. What would it be?
Well, I think there's a moment I continuously go back and remember. It's many, many years ago, before everything we spoke, but I think it remains there. I was with my girlfriends, 4 or 6 women. We went to a which I actually put in my book, Breakfast Table. We went to a beach. It's a beach you reach only by boat. There's no car, there's no roads, and we camped there. 6 women, and every morning we woke up and we made our Nescafe on a little pot. And I had my coffee looking at the ocean and surrounded by these best friends. And I felt so happy. I even back then, I realized this is the best moment of my life. I'm only 23 years old, but the nature, coffee, and my girlfriends, that was from there, I think I sailed off to whatever I wanted to do, because I felt I have these women behind me and I can do anything. I have my solitude that I'm comfortable in it. I'm 100% comfortable in being alone. And I have these girls, these women behind me, and I can lean on to them whenever I need to. And as long as I have nature around me, I can do whatever I want. That was the moment I felt the strength and freedom to go ahead. And that moment, that young self of mine remained in me and kept me going.
It's so nice. It's a wonderful story. I really liked it. And I hope that everybody has such a moment in their life which keeps them, going on. Thank you very much, Defne, for this conversation. This was very inspiring, very interesting. And we're going to meet again on another format within this project, within the forum. And we'll talk more, because there is a lot I want to ask you, and there is
Perfect.
a lot we want to hear from you. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.